2025 dropped 7 brand new cruise ships into the world, and every single one of them showed up claiming to be the next big thing. A few look the part but don't quite swing as hard as they should, and a couple might leave you wondering how a ship this new already feels like old news. So I'm ranking all 7 to figure out which ones deserve your vacation time and which ones are better admired from a distance. And I'm pretty sure at least one of these rankings is gonna start an argument in the comments. Sorry guys. Before we get into the rankings, I want to walk you through how I'm looking at these ships because context matters with a list like this. Rankings are always subjective, and what hits for me might not work for you, and that's completely normal. This is just my take based on what I value when I'm at sea. I'm judging each ship on the same things that shape your cruise: how well the ship is designed, the overall vibe and energy on board, the food and dining, the bars and entertainment, and how well everything works together once you're at sea. Now for the tiers. Instead of ranking these best to worst or worst to best, I'm actually going to be using a tier system with 5 levels. The D tier is at the bottom, and it means I don't recommend it. C tier is okay, but nothing more. B tier is solid and a reliable pick that won't let you down. The A tier is excellent and absolutely worth the trip. And the S tier is the top of the mountain, the best of the best across the entire industry. And just remember that even if a ship lands low on my list, it could be someone else's favorite of all time because, well, here's reality. We are all looking for different things when we sail. Oh, and if we haven't met yet, I'm Evan from Family at Sea. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you're here. And if you've been here for a while, you already know how much I appreciate you. If you're ready, I am. Let's go. All right, let's get things going here. And just so you guys know, I'm going through these ships alphabetically, not in ranked order. So first up is the Celebrity Xcel. The Xcel is the 5th ship in Celebrity's Edge class, and honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's the best one yet. At just over 3,200 passengers, it's got that premium feel without ever making you feel like you're fighting for space, and that's a huge win right out of the gate. But the headline here is the Bazaar, which replaced Eden. Eden was beloved, and I was personally worried that they'd lose some of that magic, but they didn't. The Bazaar is a 2-level aft-facing venue with huge LED walls that look like modern art. And throughout the cruise, those screens transform into these festival-inspired scenes tied to your ports of call. The space shifts, the decor changes, and even the menu adjusts, so you feel the vibe of the region before you even arrive. It's immersive in a way that feels intentional instead of gimmicky. But dining is where the Xcel truly shines. Mosaic replaces the Eden restaurant with upscale Caribbean dishes. Bora sits up on the rooftop with the best Mediterranean brunch I've ever had, and a Bloody Mary bar during the day that turns into a romantic dinner spot at night. The pool club has a new design with private cabanas and better flow, and the vibe across the ship is elevated but never stiff. It's clearly built for adults and couples who want something premium, but our kids still had a blast making friends in the kids clubs and beyond. Entertainment on board is strong. The spa added a hydro room with water therapy, and the Celebrity flagship museum-style retail space is surprisingly cool. So for me, this one is straightforward. The Celebrity Xcel is S tier, the best of the best. It takes everything that made the Edge class great and pushes it forward. It's spacious, it's stunning, and it genuinely feels like the future of premium cruising. All right, next up alphabetically, we've got the Disney Destiny, which is Disney's 3rd Wish class ship. The core theme here is heroes and villains, and they leaned all the way in. You have a Black Panther statue in the Grand Hall, Spider-Man on the stern, Doctor Strange theming in the Sanctum, a Lion King restaurant called Pride Lands, a Guardians of the Galaxy dinner show at Worlds of Marvel, and even an Iron Man themed suite. The Disney IP is everywhere, so if you love that, this is your playground. The trade-off though is crowding. Because Disney packs families into almost all the cabins, the number of people on board ends up being quite a bit higher than a similarly sized ship where most cabins only have 2 people. And so the result is a ship that feels busier than other ships of a similar size. The pool deck is kids central. The overall energy is loud and chaotic, and true adults only spaces are limited and in high demand. Dining is solid, especially with venues like Enchante and the Rose, but as great as the rotational experiences are in the main dining rooms, the system itself creates friction. You're assigned restaurants on specific nights, so booking specialty dining in advance can feel like a bit of a gamble because you don't always know which restaurant you're giving up on that night. Entertainment and character experiences are excellent because, well, Disney still sets the bar there. It's just very clear who this ship is built for, and that's families with young kids. Now look, here's the truth. Disney builds beautiful ships with incredible service and attention to detail, but when you're spending $7,000 to $10,000 for a basic cabin that comes with more or less nothing, well, I just think there are smarter ways to spend that money. So for me, the Disney Destiny lands in C tier. It does the job well, it's just not for me. And honestly guys, if you're looking at prices like that and thinking, okay Evan, there's gotta be a smarter way to book your cruise. Well, that's where Cruises It comes in. They're the travel agency we use for every sailing, and they've saved us a ridiculous amount of money since we started working with them. With Cruises It, you're getting an actual human who knows the ships, knows the itineraries, and helps you avoid paying premium prices for a mid-tier experience. They've saved us thousands, unlocked perks we didn't even know existed, and made sure we never end up like Frank, who once booked a Disney cruise without checking the pricing tiers and ended up paying sweet money for an inside cabin. Frank, if your room doesn't have a window but your bill looks like you bought the wrong ship, something went wrong. With their low price guarantee and a team that genuinely understands cruising, Cruises It makes the entire process easier and a whole lot cheaper. So click the link in the description below or call the number on the screen and tell them Evan from Family at Sea sent you. You'll be glad you did. All right, moving right along, we are now onto the MSC World America, which is MSC's second world-class ship and their most aggressive push yet into the North American market. This ship is huge with more than 6,700 passengers at full capacity, and it was designed specifically for American cruisers. MSC calls it European style meets American comfort, and honestly, that description is pretty spot on. The ship is broken into 7 themed districts, which helps with flow and gives each area its own feel. The Royal Galleria is a multi-deck indoor space with a massive LED dome overhead and restaurants, bars, and entertainment surrounding it. The Royal Promenade is an open-air courtyard lined with even more bars and restaurants, but it also gives you an ocean breeze instead of feeling sealed inside a mall. Up top, you've got Family Aventura, which brings the water park energy, including Cliffhanger, which is the only overwater swing ride at sea, and an 11-deck spiral slide that is, well, let's just say reminiscent of Royal's Oasis-class ships. Dining brings a ton of variety across 19 venues, and Butcher's Cut was a standout for us. I sprung for the upcharged Wagyu, and it ended up being the best steak I have ever had at sea. There's also kaito teppanyaki, patzos for Greek food, and something rare in cruising with 2 full buffets. But entertainment is where the World America really surprised me. Historically, MSC's shows have been a weak spot, a concession you make in exchange for the low prices. But this ship feels like MSC finally decided to level up. Queen Symphonic takes over the panorama lounge at the aft with floor-to-ceiling windows that turn into LED screens at night. The show has live vocals, a full orchestra piped in through the speakers, and production quality that genuinely competes with Royal Caribbean. And it's not a one-off. The entertainment across the ship is consistently strong. But as great as it is, no ship is perfect, and well, the World America is no exception. The hallways have these odd detours, and there are choke points near the theater, and the heavy use of marble, chrome, and stone makes some areas louder than you'd expect. But while MSC took clear inspiration from the biggest players in the industry, they still managed to deliver something with its own identity. The World America pushes big ship cruising forward in a way that deserves attention. So for me, it lands in the S tier at the very top of the list. Next on the list is the Norwegian Aqua, which is the first Prima Plus class ship. The Aqua is basically Norwegian saying they listened to the complaints about the Prima and Viva and rebuilt the formula. It's roughly 10% larger than its sister ships, and you feel that extra space in all the right places. The main pool is bigger, the Vibe Beach Club nearly doubled in size, and venues like Sid Norman's were expanded to fit more people, though I will say that venue still isn't big enough. The big headliner is the Aqua Slide Coaster, which is the world's first hybrid roller coaster and water slide at sea, and honestly, it works. You sit in an inflatable tube and a robotic arm launches you at the start before you slingshot your way down through twists and turns until you circle back around to the start. It uses a smaller footprint than the go-karts do, and it feels like a much better use of the space with shorter lines and more adrenaline. And the Glow Court is another win. It's this LED sports complex where the court responds to a variety of different games you play with digital effects, and it is way more fun than it sounds. Dining got meaningful upgrades as well. Hasuki now has 9 teppanyaki stations, the Planary adds a plant-based option, and Sukhothai adds a solid Thai restaurant. The spa added a 2-level waterfall and the first clay sauna at sea, and the staffing levels across the ship are higher than anything else in the contemporary category, which shows in the service throughout. But entertainment is where things fall off. Norwegian moved away from the Broadway shows they were once known for and replaced them with in-house productions like Revolution, which is their Prince tribute, Rumors, that is Fleetwood Mac, and Elements, which blends acrobatics and magic inspired by the 4 elements. While they're entertaining, they're just not at the level of what Norwegian used to offer with shows like Choir of Man, and the theater's too small, which is why some shows had to add an unexpected third performance just to make sure everybody had the chance to see it. But even with that setback, the Aqua is still overall an excellent ship, and it earns a place on the A tier because it takes the best parts of the Prima class and smooths out the rough edges. The design feels welcoming, the upgrades are thoughtful, and the overall experience is stronger across the board. Just don't go in expecting Broadway caliber entertainment. Next up is the Star of the Seas, which is Royal Caribbean's second Icon class ship and currently shares the title of the world's largest cruise ship. At over 250,000 gross tons with room for over 7,600 passengers, this ship is massive. If you've sailed on the Icon, the layout will look almost identical with the same neighborhoods, same headline features, and the same monstrous footprint. But the Star isn't a simple copy and paste because while visually it appears nearly identical, what's changed is how it runs. It's clear Royal Caribbean took everything they learned from the Icon's first year and applied it here. The ship feels more polished because of it. Entertainment is a true standout. Back to the Future is their full Broadway style show, and it's just as good as what we saw on actual Broadway. Soul, which is the new ice show, is a major upgrade from the Icon's ice show and has more energy, and it feels more immersive. And Torque and the Aqua Theater also feel sharper and more focused. But even outside the big productions, the entertainment keeps the momentum going. The music hall bands crushed every set, and Dueling Pianos had the perfect mix of comedy and crowd interaction, and I even had fun at the karaoke bar one night. Dining and service were also better than what we experienced on the Icon, with venues that opened consistently on time, food that came out faster, and a crew that just felt more coordinated. That said, the ship does still have some pain points. Many venues were too small for the passenger count. Dueling Pianos was standing room only every night. The Aqua Theater filled up too fast, and the casino was slammed from morning to midnight and beyond. Also worth mentioning there is that the cruise director was noticeably absent, which surprised us on a ship this big that they wouldn't bring in somebody with more energy and more presence. But even with those issues, the Star of the Seas earns its place on the S tier amongst the best ships in the world. Because my real takeaway here was that Royal Caribbean refined the Icon class formula and delivered a ship that feels more dialed in. So if you want a vacation where everything exists all in one place and you're okay with the crowds that come with it, the Star absolutely delivers. Next on the list is another Star, the Star Princess. This is Princess Cruises' second Sphere class ship and the follow-up to the rocky debut of the Sun Princess. It carries just over 4,300 passengers at around 170,000 gross tons, making it the largest ship Princess has ever built. And visually, it looks modern and upscale from the moment you board. The dome is the big highlight here. It works as a solarium and pool area during the day, then transforms into a multi-level entertainment venue at night with Cirque-style shows. The Princess Arena is also impressive thanks to its flexible staging. Some nights the stage sits in the center with seating wrapped around it, and other nights it shifts into a traditional theater. Dining is a mix of returning favorites like the Crown Grill Steakhouse and Sabatini's, along with some newer concepts like Love by Brito. But the odd move here on the Sphere class ships was moving the buffet from up on the Lido deck, where you can typically find it on pretty much every cruise ship ever, down to deck 9 near the piazza. And so the pool deck now has these grab and go stands, which in theory sounds fun and convenient, but in reality it slowed everything down and made a simple lunch by the pool way more complicated than it needed to be. But where the Star Princess really struggles is scale. It feels like Princess tried to cram as many venues as possible into a ship that's much smaller than the mega ships, but wanted to be able to say it offers just as much. And the result is a collection of undersized spaces that fill up fast. Getting into a show means arriving an hour early, and in the dome, maybe more like 2 hours early. Bars are packed at peak times, and even O'Malley's, which has added additional seating compared to the Sun Princess, is still tough to get a seat in. But I gotta say, Spellbound is a bright spot. On the Sun Princess, this is a dinner and a magic show, but on the Star Princess, they removed the dinner portion and lowered the price, which was absolutely the right cause. The hidden bar with special cocktails and magic show are both amazing, but on the Sun, the dinner was pretty mid. But the rest of the entertainment is inconsistent. One night, you get something spectacular, and the next night feels like a totally different ship. The bigger issue here is that Princess still hasn't figured out what these Sphere-class ships are supposed to be. They want them to be modern and upscale, but on a sold-out sailing, the experience feels cramped instead of elevated. And when the price is 20 to 30% higher than comparable itineraries on their older ships, the value just isn't there in my opinion. The upgrades are incremental, the crowds are constant, and nothing about this ship signals the future of Princess. If anything, it raises more questions about where the brand is heading. So for me, the Star Princess lands in the D tier at the very bottom. It's trying to compete with the big players, but it feels confused and undersized, like Princess drifted away from what they do best. Loyalty may end up carrying the ship, but compared to what other lines are doing at this scale, it just doesn't measure up. Alright, we made it to the end, and last on the list is the Virgin Voyages Brilliant Lady. This is the fourth and final ship in the Lady class, and there's actually no more Virgin ships on order right now, so I don't know what the future even holds for them. But as always, the ship is adults only, it carries around 2,700 passengers, and at 110,000 gross tons, it is the smallest of the new ships for 2025. If you've sailed the Scarlet, Valiant, or Resilient Lady, this ship is going to feel very familiar, because, well, it's essentially the same layout with a few small tweaks. The biggest structural change is actually the width of the ship. The Brilliant Lady was built to fit through the Panama Canal, so it's slightly narrower, which they accomplished by pulling in the lifeboats on deck 8 and actually shrunk the balconies on that deck from 40 square feet to 25, but they did add a second hammock on the balconies, so I'd say that's a win. But what makes this ship stand out is the itineraries. It opens up new routes for Virgin with sailings to New England and Canada, the Panama Canal, and the West Coast and Mexico, and Virgin's first Alaska season. So this ship finally gives Virgin something beyond the Caribbean and Mediterranean loops. There are a few noticeable upgrades. The main pool is 30% longer, which really helps on sea days, and the roundabout has more seating and a coffee and juice bar, and the draught house has now been blended into that space. But what will come as no surprise to anybody that's sailed on Virgin is that their strongest category is still dining, with more than 20 venues included and no main dining room and no buffet. Entertainment leans into Virgin's personality with quirky shows, and a refreshed Scarlet Night brings new life to their signature party. But the ship itself still has some limitations. Quiet indoor spaces are scarce, and lines for shows are some of the longest at sea, and even with the bigger pools, sea days still felt crowded. So the Brilliant Lady lands in the B tier. It nails the adults-only vibe, the dining is still great, and the evenings are always lively, but it's still mostly the same Lady class experience. And I'll be honest here, as much as I like Virgin Voyages, and I do, it's really in spite of their ships, not because of them. But no matter what kind of cruiser you are, there's no doubt that at least one of these 7 ships is what you're looking for. And I'm sure there's at least one of you watching right now that thinks my rankings are awful. So if that's you, let me know in the comments and, well, we'll see what I missed. But here's the reality. These are just the newest ships. There are hundreds of other cruise ships out there, and not all of them are worth your time or money. But the good news? I've sailed enough of these to know which ones are actually worth booking and which ones you should avoid. So don't stop here. Come hang out with me in the next one where I break down 5 cruise ships I'd book again tomorrow and 5 I'd never book again. A few others might surprise you. If you're ready, I am. Let's go.